Hello, this is Angelia, and you are listening to or watching the podcast, Why You Do What You Do. The podcast that talks about human development and psychology to maybe help you figure out a little bit more about why you do what you do. And today we're going to be talking about wisdom. Now, a lot of people think, wisdom comes with age, and to a point that's true. But of course, we know Jesus was probably the wisest person. He astounded people with his answers, and everything he said was, so powerful that, a human being probably couldn't come up with it. So, as God incarnate, of course, he didn't have to learn anything. It was just naturally there. And then, of course, there's the Buddha, who was a prince, Prince Siddhartha Gautama. I know I probably murdered that pronunciation. But anyway, his father was, king, warlord kind of guy, and was into, taking territories and everything. And the prince went out amongst the people and saw how hard this was on them, and the conditions they were living in and things like this. And he didn't want to be that way. He didn't want to be like his father. So he kind of left home and sat under a banyan tree. He'd been tutored, he had all the knowledge available at the time because he was a prince. So, he tried to figure out what is the meaning of life, what is the good way to live, what is the not good way to live, and why. And so he came to enlightenment, as they say, and he came up with, a system of ways to live your life and what's good for you and what's bad for you. And I found the Buddhist tenets to be very helpful to people mentally. I recommend you study them if you never have. Now, the area where some folks have a problem with that is that there are cultures who worship Buddha. But that's not what Buddha intended. And in the Indian version, if you will, of Buddhism, Buddha's not worshipped. He's an attainment. You attain to be like Buddha. So there are, like I say, more towards the east, folks who worship Buddha. But that was not how that was supposed to originally be. So if you study the Buddhist tenets, I don't believe God has a problem with it, as long as you're not worshiping Buddha. So, and then of course, there are other faiths who have other leaders who have imparted wisdom to them. So, wisdom is kind of a subject where there's different schools of thought. But there are also very young people who seem to be born with innate wisdom. I've talked to a few young people who seem to be wiser than a lot of the older people that I know. So, with the graying of the planet, wisdom has become an important topic of psychological research. Erickson viewed wisdom as an aspect of late life personality development. So see, they just decided wisdom comes with age. And like I said, in some cases, that's true. Other investigators define wisdom as an extension of post-formal thought, a synthesis of reason and emotion. So, a lot of researchers believe your life experiences is what gives you wisdom. If you've had a lot of life experiences, you've probably gained some wisdom. If you've had very little life experience, you probably don't have as much as someone else who did. And like I said, unless you were born with innate wisdom. Some say that wisdom is seeing through illusions. And there are a lot of people like that. They believe their own little deal. They believe what people tell them, and their life is basically an illusion because it's not real. It's not the reality of things. So at some point when you can see through the illusions that you're taught and see the world for what it is, then, that is the form of wisdom and maturity. Or the loss of what Jung called the false self. And the false self is the one we make to navigate the world. We make a false self based on what other people tell us that we should be and how we should be. And eventually, you're supposed to outgrow that and become your real self and be who you want to be. So, another approach rooted in Eastern philosophy focuses on the spiritual domain. Like I said, Buddhism, believes that wisdom is the height of mental health. Robert Sternberg classifies wisdom as a cognitive ability that can be studied and tested. So, if you're wondering if you're wise or not, you can go get psych tested and they'll let you know. According to Sternberg, wisdom is a special form of practical intelligence with a moral aspect. Because you can be as smart as you want to be, but unless you're a moral person, you're not a good person. And that's the problem we're having now in this country with some folks who are in charge, is that, they might know how to wheel and deal, but they're not moral folks. So that's showing pretty hard. It draws on tacit knowledge and is aimed at achieving a continuous good through the balancing of multiple, often conflicting interests. And that's, a thing that wise people need to do. I believe we should have wise rulers, because unwise rulers cause problems for folks. So you have to realize that what's good for these folks here, such as billionaires, is not necessarily good for these folks here, such as the abject poor. So there has to be a balance. You have to find what is the best solution for everybody. Unlike other forms of intelligence, which can be used for any purpose, wisdom involves value judgments about what ends are good and how best to reach them. So, a lot of folks aren't concerned with the greater good. That's a shame, because if you were a wise, loving, compassionate, decent person, you would be. So, the most extensive research on wisdom, has been done by Baltes and his colleagues. They define wisdom as an expertise concerning the fundamental pragmatics of life. So people who are wise are experts at life. That is, knowledge and judgment about life's conduct and meaning. So again, if you want to be wise, you have to have knowledge. You have to be able to judge between, good, bad, and all the interests of everyone. How one should conduct oneself in life. And, what's the purpose of your life anyway? Although wisdom is related to crystallized intelligence, creativity, a judicious style of thinking, and such personality dimensions as openness to experience and interest in psychological needs and motives, research suggests that is a separate, unique quality. So, again, a more outgoing person might achieve wisdom faster than an introvert because they have more experiences which they learn from. And if you care about people's mental health, their psychological needs, that can lead you to think more, which can lead you to wisdom a little sooner. Motives, again, what's your motives? If your motives are all about you and how you profit and things of that nature, you're not a wise person, because, you might end up being a rich person, but again, what good are you really doing if you're hurting others at your expense? Not much. So, a lot of people worship that almighty dollar and think that's all that matters, but it shouldn't be. And someday you're going to have to answer to a higher power for that, so good luck. It's a unique quality, wisdom, and like I said, it comes from experience. Favorable conditions for its growth may include learning. So that's why I said, learn all you can. Never stop learning. I don't want to sound like the commercial, but I was a lifelong learning teacher. I taught through my own ministry. I taught through Jefferson County Public Schools Lifelong Learning Program. I taught at the Rainbow Spiritual Education Center. I taught at Germantown Healing House. I taught at Seneca and J-Town High and Mazik Middle School. And it worked out when I caught at Seneca because my son played soccer there. So after my class ended, I could go to the soccer field. He was playing a home game and watch him play, and get him a little taco on the home or some on the way home. And then if he was away, I could sit there and wait for the bus to come and then take him home. So that worked out pretty good when I taught at his school. And then I taught through the Butterfly Center in their Chrysalis program. I was a guest professor at U of L twice and Spalding twice. I taught through Spirit of Hope Miracle Center, and I was on the radio with them and on TV with them. Then I taught at Enrich Counseling Center. I taught at Modus. So, to me, there's no reason not to learn something, you always keep learning, and after I got my degrees, I started studying languages, and, I'm still working on that, but it's hard. It's not impossible to teach an old dog new tricks, but as you get older, it's harder to learn. I've noticed that. When I was younger and studying, my 20s, 30s, not that much of a problem. As I get into my 50s, it takes a lot longer, and I'm like, what is that word for that? I feel like I should know it, but I just don't. It's just, poof, gone. So it takes a lot longer. And practice in requisite skills and motivation to strive for excellence. So, like if you wanted a new job, you would need to learn how to do that new job. That's your requisite skills. And motivation, for excellence. I always wanted to do the best that I could. When I was in 5th grade, I got the award, the Hall of Fame award, at my elementary school for reading the most books. I forget what it was, like 122 books or whatever, through the library. And I used to check out as many books as you could. I think our limit was 3 or 4. I'm not sure, but I always checked out the max number of books and, read them. I just couldn't read enough. Guidance from mentors. Again, if you want to do something, it's good to find somebody else who did it first and you think did it well. And then you learn from them. When I thought about getting into coaching, I looked into Elanya Van Zandt and some other folks, Fabian Fredrickson, and, found out how they did it and then started following in their footsteps. The mastery of critical life experience may prepare the way. So, again, you got to have experience in order to grow some wisdom, unless you were born with innate wisdom like a, sagacious person. In a series of studies, Baltes and his associates have asked adults of various ages and occupations to think about hypothetical dilemmas. Responses were rated according to criteria drawn up by the researchers. So they came up with these problems, life problems, for these people to try and solve. The basic criteria for wisdom were expert factual and procedural knowledge about the human condition, according to criteria drawn up by the researchers. So they came up with their own little problems and dilemmas that these people had to solve. The basic criteria for wisdoms were factual and procedural knowledge about the human condition and about strategies for life planning. Now, something I got into there at last when I was doing some coaching and some consulting was helping people plan life goals. Because a lot of people got out of high school, had no idea what they wanted to do with their life. Don't know. No idea. And so they wandered around from job to job, and they were just unhappy. And so, we would sit down with them and say, okay, what was your best subject in school? Because usually that's what's easiest for you and what you like the best. Because that's why you got the best grades in it. So going from there, okay, what did you like to do when you were younger? What did you think you wanted to grow up and do? And based on all this knowledge, you could put together, a plan. It's like, okay, well, your strengths were in this, so maybe you should follow this direction. Or your strengths were in that, so maybe you should follow that direction. Or, the only really good grades you got were in something creative. While you're working your 9 to 5, do some creative stuff on the side, in the evening, weekend, and see if you can make a go of that. And don't quit your job because you need money to live. But when you make as much at the other thing, then you can quit that one. So, that was something that I enjoyed helping people with. Life management, and sometimes people need help managing their life. They just poof, out of control, don't know how to do anything, weren't taught things, and you got to help them out a little bit. I had a class called Starting Over for Women who basically got out of school, got married, no life experience. That's just all they were, was a housewife, and they had no idea where to go once the marriage ended. Solving life's problems. Sometimes we all wish we could do that, and we think a winning lotto ticket probably would do the job, but sometimes we just got to do the best we can, and some people don't have the coping mechanisms, tools, excuse me, to take care of life's problems. And so sometimes, if you find yourself in that situation, you should probably go talk to somebody and get some help rather than just drown. Other criteria included awareness that life is unpredictable. In case you hadn't noticed, it is. Life is not going to do everything you want it to do. Stuff's going to happen, stuff's going to come up, and you have to be able to roll with the punches, because if every time something unpredictable happens, it throws you totally for a loop and off track, then your life's going to be pretty freaking hard. That circumstances vary greatly, and of course they do. I'm not living in the same circumstances as a multi-billionaire, so he says, oh, well, you should do this or that. It's like, yeah, that's not in my budget. So, people's circumstances do vary greatly. And what's right for one person might be 100% wrong for the next person. And that people differ in values. Of course, they do. Because we're all brought up differently. We all live in a certain culture, a certain time, a certain place, with certain beliefs. So all our values do differ. So I really hate when there's one group, and this is going on in this country now, there's one group coming against other groups for not having the same values that they have. And it's like, but their life is 100% different. You can't do that. You can't do that. You can, but I believe you're going to pay for it in the end. Goals. Not everybody has goals. Not everybody wants to do anything. I knew a couple, got married. They said, oh, we don't want to do nothing. We like going to work, coming home, vegging out on the couch, and watching, movies and stuff. That's all we want to do. We don't want to do anything else. So, if that's your goal in life, you're probably going to be pretty happy. But most people have something they want to do and achieve. So, priorities. Again, people's priorities are different. I have certain priorities that I feel like to me, it was important to continue teaching, even though I can't get out anymore, and do that because I can't spend a day, even part-time, and then drive home both, teaching. Because the last time I was trying to do it, several times in a row, I started having back spasms and had to pull my car over on one of the busiest roads in this city. And people were like, are you okay? Do you need to call? No, I'm fine. I'm having a back spasm. It'll stop. Just go on with your life. Because, I don't want to be the cause of traffic accidents or backups. So, but I wanted to continue teaching. So that's why I'm here doing this. Because I felt like I'd always told myself, all right, between 50 and 60, I want to keep teaching. That's all I'm going to do. I'm going to stop at 50, all the other stuff I was doing. And I'm going to be teaching, from 50 to 60. And then when I'm 60, I'm going to quit teaching and, do my own little creative thing. So, that's my priority, is that during my 50s, I still wanted to teach. So, other people have different priorities. They might like just sitting around doing nothing. So, but I can't do that. I'm hyper. I can't sit down and do nothing, and I would feel like a bum if I sat down and did nothing. That would freak me out. So that no one solution is best for everyone, and it's not. You cannot say this is best for everyone. It's not. There's no such thing. So like I said, you have to weigh out, what's best across the board for everyone. Because what's best for this group might be way different than what's best for this group. So, that's where wisdom comes into play. You have to weigh out what's best for everyone. In one of these studies, 60 well-educated German professionals aged 25 to 81 were given 4 dilemmas involving such issues as weighing career against family needs, and that's something that pops up for all of us. I had that problem when I was a single mom for 8 years. I had to weigh my career against family needs. I could have probably worked more hours, but my oldest child is disabled, and leaving him home alone with the younger two who have their own problems for long periods of time was not a great option. So I opted to work part-time and then work on my business and thing here at the house while I was here with them. So yeah, I could have made more money, but they would have suffered for that. And my kids always come first. They always will come first. So I was not going to let my children suffer because of my ambition. And deciding whether to accept early retirement. Again, my husband could do that, but he's like, man, if I go now, I'm not going to make as much. I know I'm hurting, and I keep saying, let me help you get an easier job, because he's got 30 plus years experience on the job. He could easily become a shop manager or, at least a parts person somewhere where he wasn't hurting himself so bad. But he's like, I can handle a few more years, but then he comes home and my back, my hips. Ugh, it's frustrating. So it's you got to weigh that out, Is it worth the money situation? Can you afford to take early retirement? Or you could do something different, like we see these Walmart greeters and folks, the older folks sitting there and, hey, welcome to Walmart, here's your sticker, That's surely an easier job. So, you got to make these decisions. Of 240, solutions, only 5% were rated wise, according to the criteria just listed. So that's a pretty small number. Pretty small. Of 240, only 5 made wise choices. And these responses were distributed nearly evenly among young, middle-aged, and older adults. So see, wisdom does not necessarily come with age. It comes with experience and knowledge. Participants showed more wisdom about decisions applicable to their own stage of life, which of course makes sense. You know where you're at and what's going on with you. For example, the oldest group gave its best answers to the problem of a 60-year-old widow who, having just started her own business, learns that her son has been left with 2 young children and wants her to help care for them. So, in my situation, I might be inclined to do that. But I also might say, hey, I just started this. I got money invested in it. Maybe we can work something out where you could bring them here or you could hang out here or something. But, I would have to weigh that out pretty hard. If I had invested that kind of money to start a business. So, it would all depend on all the fractals involved. In another study, the researchers assembled 14 middle-aged and older adults who were named by others as wise. So these were referrals, if you want to call it that. People said, this person's wise, that person's wise. When presented with 2 dilemmas, the one about the 60-year-old widow and another about a phone call from a friend who intends to commit suicide, these wisdom nominees equaled the performance of elderly clinical psychologists. the best performers in the previous study. Well, there you go. Who were trained to deal with the kinds of problems presented. And you are. People think, oh, I ain't going to head shrinkers, blah, blah, blah. Psychologists, they don't know what they're talking. Well, yeah, they do. Because let me tell you, it took me 13 years. Most people, it doesn't take quite that long. Most people, get through there in, 8 to 10, depending on, where they study and if they go for, internship and things of that nature. But let me tell you, you learn a lot. For 13 years of my life, I studied psychology. So that's what all I studied, because I went to career schools and, distance studies. I didn't go to a well-rounded college because I couldn't afford to. And when I was in my bachelor's, I found out I couldn't get a license in my state, because you had to get a license in this state by going to a school in this state, or coming from another state with already a license, and then they would let you have one here. So as soon as I realized that, I was like, okay, well, I'm going to continue my studies. I'm going to get this knowledge for my clients. But in the end, like I said, I have an equivalency. I didn't write a dissertation. I didn't apply for any internships or anything because I knew I couldn't get a license, so what's the use in that? I just wanted the knowledge. I got the knowledge. But you learn a lot. You learn about your own self, and you learn about other people's selves. So, the people who were labeled the most wise were elderly psychologists. So, if you need to go to a psychologist, look for one who's been around for a while. They're probably going to give you better advice than a new one. Sorry, new guys. Don't get mad at me. But, here it is. So, both of these expert groups gave wiser answers than control groups of older and younger adults with similar education and professional standing. So, again, if you study the mind and how the mind works, you're more likely to understand more about how the mind works. Why you do what you do. So, that's just a gimme. Wisdom has an interactive aspect. In one experiment, both younger and older adults gave wiser responses to hypothetical dilemmas when told to think about what someone whose opinion they valued would say. And that's the big thing when my kids were growing up in church, is everything had WWJD on it. They had the shirts, the bracelets, and stickers and all that stuff. WWJD. So you put yourself, what would Jesus do? Or, someone in your family or someone you knew growing up, maybe a teacher, a mentor, a public figure that you looked up to. And, what would they say? What would they do about this problem? And sometimes if you're stuck, you can do that, When given extra time to think about a problem after discussing it with a spouse, domestic partner, relative, or friend, older adults gave wiser answers than younger ones. So see, older adults do have more experience, so if they can bounce ideas off people and think about things, they come up with better solutions than younger folks. So, because younger folks don't have the experience of life that older folks do. So, whereas I know when I was younger, a lot of folks' advice was, go do it. Well, screw him, whatever. So, older folks do have the advantage over younger folks when it comes to wisdom. All in all, wisdom seems to be a highly individual thing, not subject to generalizations about normative development. So again, like I said, I've met some 20-year-olds who are pretty wise compared to some of the older folks I knew. And not gender related. So, if you've ever heard men have the bigger brain, well, men have a bigger body. That's why men have a bigger brain, because it's in a bigger body. Hello. But we have 3 times connections in our corpus callosum than men do. So, I'm not going to say women are smarter than men, but hey, there have been studies done that suggest that. So, It's not gender related. Such qualities as openness to experience. Again, if you're open to experiences and you're more outgoing, you're going to learn more and you're going to have more experiences than someone who's an introvert and doesn't want to have experiences. Creativity, the more creative you are, the more you got the right side of your brain going, and the more those two sides work together, the more connections you build, excuse me, and the more neurons you grow, and therefore your brain is better connected, and it's easier for it to think. Reflective thinking, a lot of people don't do any reflective thinking. They just do what they do, they go through life, they never look back and think, what did I learn from that? Or what could I have done different? Or what should I have done in that situation? A lot of people, they don't even look at their past or what they shoulda, coulda, woulda. They don't want to think about that. But it's actually good for you to think about that, because that's how you learn to not make mistakes again in the future, to not, do something that's going to, cost you in the future. Reflective thinking is an important tool that, God put in there for us to learn from. So, if you behaved badly and something happened, you should learn from that. And sophisticated moral reasoning seems to contribute to it. So again, moral reasonings. I feel like everybody should have a spiritual belief system, because I believe it teaches you morals, how to behave, how to react towards other people, so that, you are a decent person. Because there's a lot of folks out there who don't have a moral compass, and they're just doing everything to everyone. And that, like I said, in this life, they might get you somewhere, but someday you're going to have to answer for this life. And if you ran around without a moral compass, I don't want to be in your shoes. Perhaps the most significant contribution of this line of research is the study of wisdom, the attempt to measure it systematically and scientifically, because intellect can be measured. So, that's something that scientists were excited about. Is like, people have different, opinions on what wisdom is, but you can actually measure it scientifically. So, that's kind of cool. The key developmental finding is that wisdom, though not exclusively the province of old age, is one area in which older people, especially those who have had certain kinds of experiences, and like I said, you got to have some experiences. You can't sit on your couch and just watch the world go by and think you're going to be a wise person, because you basically have had no experiences. You're just watching through the boob tube what it's all about. But older folks can hold their own or better than younger folks when it comes to wisdom. So, there we are. Like I said, wisdom is different things to different people. You can be born with innate wisdom. You might get older and have a lot of experiences in your life and develop wisdom. That's like folks, I've had folks that I met like at a, high school reunion or whatever. And they're like, wow, I'm surprised you did this. When I knew you, you were just into boys or whatever. I'm surprised you put yourself out there, because, you wouldn't talk about anything when you were younger. You were so quiet. So, we don't stay the same. We grow and learn. And the more we have experiences, the more we learn. And the more we learn, the more we know. The more we know, the wiser we are. So, like the commercial again, the more you know. But think about it. Please like and share this wisdom so we can spread it, wisdom, around the world. If you want to help me out, subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you want to help me out even more, go to my Patreon page and become a patron. I hope this helped you figure out maybe a little bit more about why you do what you do. Thanks for watching. That's all for now. Until next time.